I'd like to call this meeting to order. Attendance sheet is moving around the table. If you haven't signed it, please do so. And think of the roll call.
Frank Brzezowski.
Here.
Brian Chapman.
Here.
Mark Sikora. Steve Kopp Jr.
Here.
Don Duval.
Here.
Al Horton.
Here.
Colleen Holbert. Dr. Kellogg.
Here.
Very good. Henry Jerzak is not here. Bill Kennedy.
Here.
Rick Kimball.
Here.
Jim Kintz is not here, I'm his alternate. Al Lewis.
Here.
Tim Marshall.
Yes.
Devin McGinnis.
Here.
Dan Miller.
Here.
Kelly Miller. Jim Page.
Here.
Dave Rupture. Jeff Sweet's not here. Terry Simons. Here. Mary Ann Teeter. Here. Roll call's complete. And we don't.
Correspondence. I'm going to start with disciplinary actions from New York State Department of Health. First is dated June 6th against Alejandro Serrano from the Bronx. Certification has been revoked as effective 5/21/18 for violations of Part 816A4. So he's been revoked, and goes out to the REMAC. June 25th, 2018, for violations of Article 3012, subsection L, subsection F, to Bayside Community Ambulance Corps Incorporated. And their agency certification was revoked effective 5/29/18. I apologize, I didn't look it up, but I believe that's for operating outside of.
Yes.
Okay.
Among other things.
Okay. And last is dated August 21st, 2018, against Stanford Smith from Brookhaven, New York. And Mr. Smith was suspended for 1 year. The remaining 6 months is stayed, and he is forever prohibited from participating in the CME recertification program, along with a fine of $4,000, $2,000 which was forgiven.
That was nice of them.
Yeah. So he'll be attending refreshers from here on out. We did get correspondence from MSTAR. They're working on a project to update medical director verifications, and they've updated Horseview Gang Mills, Albany Ambulance, Odessa Fire Department, Corning Fire Department, Caton Fire Department, Baldwin Fire Department, Watkins Fire Department, and Fremont Ambulance. And the only other piece of correspondence in front of me is actually this year's copy of memorandum of understanding between the council and MSTAR. Finance Committee's been working on that. I'm going to save further discussion on that for the Finance Committee report. Questions? Okay. Upcoming events, don't forget, it's that time of year again. I get, I think, 3 emails a day from Andy Johnson. Yeah, I wish I got 3 meals a day from Andy. Regarding Vital Signs Conference, October 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Yeah, I'm trying to, my schedule for that is running through my head. Don't go by my schedule. You'll be
Okay.
way too early.
Anywho, Vital Signs is scheduled this year for Syracuse. We are still in the early registration period. So if you're registered before September 16th, I think it's a $55 discount.
Just an FYI, for those of you that are instructors, one of the pre-cons is actually an MC2 course, which is well worth it.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, they've got some neat pre-conference. They have the solid,
The solid,
difficult early course this year as well. Nikki tells me that our public information officer has, chairman has got that up on the council website, so information's there if you're not getting those 3 emails a day. Approval of the previous minutes. Everybody got a copy of the minutes from the May meeting? Any changes, corrections, additions?
I'll move it. Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. CMAC and SEMSCO have not met. We'll be meeting later this month in Troy, 25th and 26th. So, unless you have something CMAC directed.
Don't think so.
Oh, in that case.
In that case, it's me anyway. Streamac met last week. We had a couple important things that we talked about. Number one, we've passed a new policy on radio reports that I will send out by Nikki to the council here. But in essence, we want to try to shorten pre-hospital notification only, not the ones that are asking for medical direction, but the ones that are just, this is what we're bringing in, trying to limit those down to 30 seconds if possible, and use a standardized format that is used by other hospitals around the state and the country. So again, we'll send those out, but hopefully that'll be helpful to everybody. Number two, we discussed QI, and thank you to all the agencies that are actively participating in QI. For those that are not, they will be receiving a strongly worded letter encouraging them to participate, as they should. And we are going to work on developing some new QI questions for our wonderful QI committee to address in 2019. We also had a heated discussion about provider credentialing, and this is something that is coming to us as a directive from the state, that we need to be a little bit more active as a region in provider credentialing. And so what we are looking at doing, because a lot of agencies do a really good job of staying on top of their providers, and we don't want to punish people who are already doing what they should be doing, is kind of pushing it back to the agency medical directors to provide to the REMAC one of 3 things, a list of all their providers, and one of 3 things: either that provider can practice unrestrictedly in the region, can practice with restrictions in the region, or can't practice in the region at all. And again, agencies reporting that to us, our hope is that we'll fulfill the requirements that the state is going to put on us. The other thing that I hope everybody's aware of at this point that we discussed, St. Joe's no longer admits patients medically, so ideally, medical patients should be taken to another facility. Obviously, if a patient says, I want to go to St. Joe's, they have that right, and taking them anywhere else would be considered kidnapping in the state of New York. And cardiac arrests and things like that always have to go to the nearest facility, but anything else, strongly encourage patients to go to another hospital where they can actually be admitted. I'd be happy to take any questions on any of those 3 issues. I did such a good job.
For St. Joe's, psychiatric, just solely
So-
mental health, no.
Pure mental health, not this is an overdose that needs to be watched. Those can go to St. Joe's, they still have the BSU there. But if you think there's all a medical component, it should go elsewhere. That's all I got.
Okay. Systems.
Systems met tonight for a long, in-depth meeting. The main thing that we brought up was the Steuben County Sheriff's Office. Over our summer break, they submitted their BLSFR application. It was, due to us being on our summer break, it was sent to the executive committee, and the executive committee voted to endorse it to the state and send it forward to the state. But according to our bylaws, it has to be brought back to this committee to be re-reviewed and brought forward. I'm not sure a vote is required, but discussion is required. The application was deemed to be complete. I do have a copy of the application if anybody would like to review it, but it was a well-done application, and it's ready to go. It was actually more than what the state required.
Just as a point of order, I do think the council should reaffirm the executive committee's decision.
So it's brought forward as a motion.
I'll second.
A little more discussion about the application. It's a little bit different than what BLSFR agencies normally do. The sheriff's office stated, I think, in their policies that their main focus continues to be law enforcement, obviously. And then to supplement as they're available, rather than being a primary mission of first response. Their primary mission is law enforcement.
Absolutely. I think the sheriff's department should be applauded because they saw a need in the community, and they're doing what they can to meet the need, and while still maintaining their primary responsibility as law enforcement and public safety.
Our goal is to keep them alive till you get there.
So what happens, like in our area, Woodhull area in particular, you know, we all have the multiple tones, all of that stuff,
Yeah.
but so many times during the day, there's still nobody that comes.
And that's why we wanted to do it, because what we found is a lot of the volunteer areas, during the working hours, the folks that will take time to become EMT are at a job in Corning or Hornell. And we would respond if we can get an ambulance coming. We will do what we can to keep them, to stabilize them, and ready them for the ambulance transport. If they have to go with it, they'll go.
Okay.
But we would prefer not to.
Okay. So just to, and I was quizzing Donnie Lewis about this,
Yeah,
so.
Donnie's in charge of it.
Yeah.
so.
So what happens if there's a car accident
Mhm.
and you only can raise one ambulance and there's multiple patients? So
Right.
what happens then? Is the sheriff's department gonna step in and take an ambulance out of a surrounding area and transport that patient and just leave the
It's
cars
gonna
on
be
scene?
case by case and determined by the severity of the injury.
Okay.
I don't think the sheriff's department, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ross, but the sheriff's department couldn't put 2 sheriff's deputies in someone else's ambulance and transport somebody. Correct? I mean, that really,
They
they're a
could under mutual
BLSFR.
aid, could they not?
But they're a BLSFR.
It's a stretch.
I mean, it's always
Because
do what's in the best interest of the
The
patient.
individual's still
but-
certified as an EMT, so,
Yeah.
Right.
but I don't think Sheriff Allard wants his guys, getting into the ambulance because it's.
No, that is not our goal. Our goal is to try and meet that need that you just discussed until the bus can get there. Yeah. And
Well,
hopefully
let's hope
save
that
lives.
people will continue to bring the bus and not say the
Yes.
sheriff's department will
Yeah.
handle it.
Well, and we
Yeah.
know sometimes in that area, the closest ambulance is in an AMR rig coming out of Corning.
Yeah.
You know, so 40 minutes is not a stretch for a transport unit to get to you. And to have a, EMT, first responder on the scene, handling that medical priority until a rig can get to you, we're helping the system.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a great
That's
idea.
the goal.
And that was part of our discussion when we
Yes.
sat down with the sheriff and undersheriff.
We're not looking to supplant.
If it's a motor vehicle accident, there's obviously public safety issues involved. The policy, the BLSFR policy clearly state that the public safety has got to be their #1 priority because that's what they do.
Yep.
But if there's not a public safety issue, then patient care becomes their mission, so.
And as we discussed, I look at public safety a little differently. I don't look at it as just law enforcement. I look at it as saving lives of citizens of Sept County. And that was the whole impetus for this, is so that we don't lose someone because we can't get somebody there.
Well, really, it's an expansion of what you've been doing, you carried AEDs for years.
Yes, and
We
we've
started
had
that
several
program
saves with that, yeah.
You guys years ago,
And now
just
Narcan.
sliding over with doing some basic medical care is very important.
Mm-hmm, yep,
It's
yeah,
gonna be a long time getting realized,
yeah,
for many reasons.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments? So as I said, the motion is really to reaffirm the executive committee's recommendation that the Steuben County Sheriff's Department be granted BLSFR agency code. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Carries.
Back in beginning of July, we received the CON from the Independence Emergency Squad. That's the ambulance service that's outside of our region, but actually covers a small township within our region. I reviewed the application prior to calling the committee together to do the complete review, and I found that it was incomplete, as in they did not send us the check for the processing of the application. So I got a hold of the lawyer. It's Pinsky, correct, is the lawyer? It's the Pinsky law firm out of Syracuse, I believe. And I spoke with the lawyer there, and he assured me that a check would be forthcoming within the next few weeks. As of today, we still have not received the check, so we're going to. I spoke with Dana Jonas at the Department of Health and advised him that we're going to be returning the application as incomplete, and so that they can start the process all over again. It's a very small ambulance service with not a lot of money, so I was trying to do what we could to make it as easy as possible for them. But I really honestly don't believe that the check is coming.
Where's the location?
Whitesville.
Whitesville.
They cover a small portion of the town of West Union. West Union is split between Greenwood Fire and Whitesville Independent Ambulance.
I think it does bear a little more discussion. I think it's only like 6 or 8 calls per year.
I was gonna say,
It is. It's
less than a dozen probably.
I know we had discussed in the past of a hardship policy for CONs, and this is exactly the type of agency that the hardship policy would have been best useful for, but unfortunately, the ruling from the state is that we have to treat everybody the same across the board, no matter their financial means or anything else. So it really kind of is a shame, because they're the ones that really could have used that hardship policy.
Well, I think the bigger travesty is it's not necessarily the money, it's the fact that this has been in the hands of people who make an awful lot of money to make these things happen for well over 2 years now, I
Yeah,
believe.
this is the second or third application they've sent to us, and they've all been, and actually this application was very well done, and it would have definitely met the requirements to be deemed complete. It's just minus the check.
This council reached out to Independence and offered assistance. The Western region, Southwestern region, also reached out. We offered to share the burden of the public hearing and the expenses, so it would be less expensive for the agency. Went round and round with their legal counsel, who demanded to know where we lost their original application. And when I asked him to produce a certified mail receipt, a day later he said, well, you know, my paralegal that I fired apparently never did that. I feel sorry for the agency, but the gist I got from my last conversation with Dan Clayton was they're at the point where a violation would be likely. And so I think when Rick and I and Ross talked about this latest go-around, we felt it fair to offer them 10 days to make it right with their required deposit. The lawyer acknowledged it. The lawyer apparently acknowledged that they would probably pay for it out of their law firm's funds. They haven't done it, so I think we've done everything that we can do.
Yeah,
I really honestly
you've
feel
done
we've
your
been
due
over
diligence,
backwards.
you've been more than accommodating. And the sad part is, it's not the agency's fault, it's their chosen representative. And that's an issue. But yeah, absolutely send it back with a cover letter stating it's incomplete because the judge, if you've got a timeline, Rick, and I'm sure I know you have a timeline, include that
I will.
and copy Albany on.
I actually even have recordings of the phone calls.
Why am I not surprised?
All right, so that's gonna be sent back to the state. The last thing is the program agency, and there's no action required by this body, but the program agency sent us a listing of, they're in the process of going to all the known PAD agencies within the region and assisting them with meeting their updating requirements. And I do have a list of those if anybody's interested to see that. Mike, is the program agency sending a list of these to the 911 centers as well, to let them know who in their counties have the PAD?
That's our goal, and also, we're collecting exact locations as well.
Okay, all right.
There is one other thing we do need from you,
No, go ahead.
the endorsement for EPCR.
The endorsement for APCRs, I think we've already endorsed those, and I didn't get any actually applications for endorsement.
Well, I added on two.
I saw Hornell Fire Department and Fremont Volunteer Fire Department, but we actually don't have their,
It's not an application, it's an update, they're going from NEMSIS 2 to NEMSIS 3.
Right,
That-
but there's an update that needs to be signed, a document.
signed and sent to the state, and I believe we already, I think we
I have
already,
it, it's waiting for your all's endorsement.
I think we already endorsed Hornell's, but Fremont, I didn't, is there endorsement required for them to go to NEMSIS 3?
Yes.
Yes, if you'll remember, back in May, we did AMR.
Yeah, I know we did AMR, but I believe we did Hornell's as well at the same time. Do you have the applications? If you have the
Yes.
applications here, bring them over to me.
Yep.
And I'll check them real quick, and then I'll bring them forward as motions. If the chair doesn't mind.
Nope. We're in good shape.
They've both been EPCR, they're just transitioning versions. And the state asked for them to be re-endorsed.
Okay. I'll make a motion for Fremont ambulance be endorsed to move to NEMSIS version 3 on the EPCR platform.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Rose. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Mr. Rose abstains.
I'll make a motion that we endorse the Hornell Fire Department transition from NEMSIS version 2 to NEMSIS version 3.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained?
Any questions for the systems committee? That's my report, thank you.
Great, thanks. Training and education.
Training and education did not meet. However, I did receive 3 applications for renewal for sponsorships over the summer. These were early in the summer. They were forwarded on through email. They were all deemed complete, so I'd like to put them for the record before council tonight.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to do them one at a time, or do you want all 3, or?
Your choice.
Well, as I said, they're all complete, but I can break them down for each individual agency if you want, whatever your pleasure is.
I'll make a motion that we accept them as a group.
Okay.
I love that motion.
And they were short version, you know, one was for M-Star. The second was St. James, and the third was Schuyler County. And they were all deemed complete.
Discussion?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
I apologize. Now discussion.
I'd like to, I didn't realize who it was, but I just want a possible conflict of interest as a board member of MSR.
Okay. So, obviously, everyone's aware Rick's a member of the board of directors of MStar. So, it's up to the council whether they pursue his vote would be a conflict of interest. So I'll entertain a motion for or against. So are you moving that would not be a conflict?
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. So there's no conflict of interest. Any other conflict? Yeah.
Just for the record on the discussion of the first motion, I've signed off on all three of those.
Oh,
Forward and I, okay. And Mr. Kennedy was privileged enough to have done long form this year and got to visit with me for a little while, and that all went well. So, they're all good to go on my end.
You even put nice colored tabs on all the stuff. See?
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. So, motion is to approve all three of course sponsorship renewals, or to recommend their approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other abstentions? Okay. Great.
And just on a side note, both on the website and on the MSTAR website, there's listings for all classes, which has been pretty much plastered out. Quite a few of them have already started underway for the fall, but there are listings on there for anybody that hasn't seen them for this year, for the 2018-2019 year. And that's about it.
Okay. Actually, I have something for you, Frank. This is relatively new, and I actually get correspondence from MSTAR on the 12th. Dr. Kellogg actually kind of briefly alluded to it. One of the ideas that we floated as we talked about reviewing and updating the regional analyst credentialing policies, and also in looking at some things that we could do to help with regional updates. Asked the program agency to look into the cost of a learning management system that we might be able to use to put out regional content, regional QA offerings, podcasts that are in production or soon to be in production. The things that the region might mandate for QA purposes, but also to offer something to small agencies to help with record keeping for CME recertification. Mike got back to me with three suggestions on online learning management system platforms. One being to the north of us, the system that Milrams uses. One to the east of us, the system that Central New York uses, and then something in between. It was a very preliminary discussion. It was just kind of a, do you think this might be feasible? So I think the question going forward, and probably best answered by training committee, would be, what would be your vision if you had that tool to work with, and how would you like to see it utilized? And would it be a benefit to the region? So So I'm gonna pass that, paper off to you and wait for your input.
Sounds good.
Any other questions for training committee? All right. Public information. Where's Mr. Sweet?
He's not here, but there's nothing significant to report.
Okay.
He was here, but he got called away.
Just a couple short things. I continue to see new things posted on the council website. Kind of happy about that. I think it's, I think the utilization's growing, and appreciate the committee's work with that project. By all means, if anybody has suggestions for the council website, forward them to Mr. Sweet, the Public Information Committee. The one thing that I think is lacking, I haven't seen a lot of pictures submitted. We talked about that initially, and the ability to kind of more personalize the website. Not my So if you have noteworthy items, pass them along to public information. Any other questions about public information? QA committee.
Actually, Dr. Kellogg kind of addressed our concerns, that it was, we really would like a reminder, and they supported that, to go out to all the agencies about quality improvement and the importance of it. So we're working on how we want to roll things out for 2019. And I know some agencies are doing it, and we commend them for doing that. But we need everyone's participation. It is a requirement. And one thing that Mike handed me, and if you're not aware of this, it is on the New York State DOH website. And this is a wonderful, it's actually called a workbook and guidance document about quality improvement, performance improvement for pre-hospital providers. And it just breaks it down rather nicely if people aren't familiar, because I know there's been a turnover of staff and so on and so forth. If they're not familiar about how to go about it. We did have an orientation for a lot of the new people. That was back in May, if I remember correctly, at Corning Hospital. And so we could roll this out, and everyone was able to access this either online or have received a printed copy of it. But those are the kind of the high points that came out of all that. And we've asked the Stream Act to give us some direction as far as what they would like us to include in our reviews.
Good job.
So, thanks.
Any other questions for QA committee? Being none, I'll move to finance committee. Mr. Kentz is currently indisposed, so Mr. Lewis will be presenting.
Yeah, where is it? He called me and said, "Would you do this report?" It's kind of a ho-hum report, if you will. Over July and August, we ended through the budget $297.06. It seemed that the system was working very fine. It was set up. And there's ample money left in this new year. The only other thing I have in front of me is this thing from Brandon Rossetti. Are you going to bring that up? It was handed
I was just
to me.
going to say that. It's perfect timing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can. Did a finance committee discuss it all?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't need to, I think, come to yours time.
Okay. Sure, I can, actually, I'll Brandon and I will kind of do it together. The idea of a regional one-day EMS conference was floated again a couple months ago. And we had some preliminary discussions about how to tie agency, the council and program agency together, and how the council could support a conference within the confines of the state regulations. So when Brandon approached me first about it, I thought back to some of the things that Tom Mahana had taught us, and said, you know, we'd entertain a proposal that benefits the providers in the region, and was something that we could point to as kind of a deliverable, if you will. We know that we can't spend money on promotion. We know that we're not allowed to do promotional things. And if we were to fund the conference directly, the council would have to be the lead agency. So in order to keep it a group effort, we sat down, we discussed the conference, and Brandon will talk more about that in a bit. But it looks like the break-even cost for someone to attend the conference is about $30 per student. And that includes lunch and the conference itself. So what seemed to be the most viable option was for us to look at subsidizing providers who are actively providing care within the Southern Tier region, and offering a reduced rate registration for the conference. So the proposal we settled on was the conference will be December 1st. It's $30 a student, which includes lunch. However, if you're a Southern Tier Regional EMS Council provider, the cost to you is only $20, and the council would pick up the final 10 to bring that back to break even. When we ironed that out, Dr. Kellogg was there at the meeting, and Mike Griswold, Brandon, Mary Ann. I suggested to Brandon that he submit a proposal back to the Finance Committee for their consideration, and then obviously any projects that we choose to fund like this need the council's approval. So before I open up for discussion and questions, I guess I would move that the council subsidize regional providers who want to attend the Southern Tier Regional EMS Council Conference.
Just so I understand down here, are we paying the $10 or are we paying the entire?
No, we're paying the $10 per.
$10 per, so they would, so it would drop them from 30 to 20.
Correct. Correct.
Really, that motion could come from up here.
I'm sorry.
That motion should come from up here.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll make that motion as proposed.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Now I'll open it up for discussion and questions, and also Brandon Rossetti's here in attendance. He's kind of spearheading the conference, so.
Brandon can give us a great overview.
Yes, so we met over the summer, even before when Don and I talked, and Mike and Will, we met preliminarily with the Bath BA. They have been nothing short of amazing to work with in planning this. They fully want to embrace bringing us in. They just want to be a bigger part of the system. So they're opening up their doors. They have a really nice auditorium. Kind of reminds me of like a junior high auditorium, the way it looks, smells, everything. Anyway, but AV equipment is all in place. And they have another area, not quite adjacent to the area that we saw there, Mike, but they have an area upstairs for vendors and some other, if we want to just have little break times and things like that. But I meet with them again tomorrow just to kind of finalize a couple details, but the date is in place. They're all on board. The agenda is in place. The speakers are all in place. I was just waiting for tonight just to, wait for tonight to get the final approval, and then we start advertising.
And then we'll tell you who it is.
Right. So, and I've been playing a lot of phone tag with the new owner of Chatawile Restaurant here in Bath. He's more than happy to help us with the catering. He's just working on some prices. It sounds like they've had a recent shift in ownership. He's only owned the place about 2 months, so he's trying to keep his head above water, as he said. But he wants to help us. That's kind of within their his new vision plan to help the community, help first responders, so he definitely wants to help with at least lunch. He said he's gonna whip up 2 prices for us, one kind of lunch, and then 1 lunch, and then 2 breaks, a morning and an afternoon break. So I'm gonna try to pop in and see him tomorrow, as long as I'm in Bath anyway, and hammer down some prices for a student. So.
What's the capacity of that venue?
I'd say it could, Mike, at least a couple hundred people
Oh,
probably.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good sized auditorium. Yeah, it's a good sized auditorium.
And the date is?
The date is December 1st. It's a Saturday. After a lot of talk, we picked that day because it's not in hunting season, and that's a huge concern. And then we also tried to stay away from other obviously vital signs and then some other regional conferences within the general area. So that date just kind of worked for a lot of folks, and we went with it.
What are some of your topics and speakers?
Topics, yes. Dr. Kellogg is our keynote and lead-off speaker. Dr. Kellogg, you're going to talk about wellness in EMS. Is that still here?
That's time.
Yes, all right. We have a pediatrics session that'll be taught by one of the residents at the Arnett, a 4th-year resident who also has 8 children. So we figure, who better to talk about kids than a doctor with 8 kids? We have a cardiac section that is planned. The staff from URMC will be coming down to talk about kind of all things cardiac gadgets, from ventricular assist devices to life vests, to all gadgets that we're seeing in the community now. We're having a general kind of trauma panel, again, that URMC wants to help out with, talking about really kind of where are we gone and where are we going with spinal motion restriction. That seems to be still a hot button topic. And gosh,
And I see one of the authors on that release that just came out is Dr. Gessler.
Yes, yes. So,
University of Rochester.
and I'm trying to think of the other 2. Maria, do you remember?
Stroke.
Yeah, stroke. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
That's what I,
Yeah, I know.
Not everyone, maybe that is slick.
Well, and
I'm
actually.
forgetting a session. We have 6 sessions total. It's a full
Poison,
day.
are you doing poison? overdose?
No, yes, that's what it is. We have
Syracuse
the
people.
regional rep, the nurse from Upstate's Poison Control Center is coming. She spoke 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago at our fall conference. She's amazing. She's really got her finger on the pulse of what's new and upcoming in drug abuse, and and the questions that she can answer are just, she's really a great resource. That's a good talk. So. But it's a full day, catered, CMEs, you can't beat it for $20, really.
I just would like to add to that, because over the years we've done these, and we get a wonderful response from BLS providers.
Yes.
We'd like to see ALS providers there as
Correct.
well, because there's going to be that more advanced presentation.
I think we have a
so
good mix.
We're
really.
asking for your support.
Right. So if you folks, being the leaders of your agencies and of your respective areas, if you can help us kind of pitch this and promote this.
And they get 6 CME, right?
Yeah.
They do.
For attending.
The StreamAC will approve that.
Yes,
Yes.
the CME is going to approve that.
So look for an email from myself or Karen Smith at MSTAR in the next week with everything fully ready for registration. But like I said, we're just waiting for tonight to push those things out.
Because I think Save the Date is on the website.
Yeah, Save the Date's been out and well received, and I know a lot of people are just waiting to hear back.
So the actual sponsor is Arnett Health?
No, it's a three-pronged thing.
We've kind of approached it as a team collaboration, I think. There's a draft. I purposely asked that nobody advertise until we actually agree to a proposal. I'll send them a plain letter. And this is the proposed flyer that they put out. We're basically, the council, the program agency, and Arnett Health are kind of sharing the PR aspect, if you will.
That's what we're here for.
But-
Right, and I believe all the speakers are donating their time to.
What, we are?
You can have a sticky bun or something.
So, the intention is to, from the discussion with Brandon, the intention is also to advertise this
Thank you, Don.
to the regions around us and to our friends across the border in PA.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Their recertification is all CME, and they're in a dead zone where there's nothing that's offered for them. So they'll pay, obviously, this proposal passes, they'll pay the full price, our people pay 2/3 of what they anticipate the break even is.
Is it only open for EMS or is it open for nurses too?
Nurses are EMS.
Right.
It says CME to all levels of EMS, yours has got it too.
We're all one big happy family.
Yes, just ask those two.
Might not be that happy of a family in that house or something, I don't know.
I think it bears noting though that, as far as nursing CEs, I'm not sure if they're
Nursing-
required to be submitted.
Nursing's are CEU, not CME, but they still would recognize it if they really
Okay.
needed it.
So we should be able to charge nurses $75.
75 a week. Easy. They make more
They make more money.
But I want to thank Donnie and actually Brandon
That's
and
quite-
Well-
Dr. Kellogg for this, because they've been a lot of negotiating and hard work to put it together. Because we remember when we would do these, and they were so well received, and we thought it was time to start anew.
Well, and nationwide, it seems like the trend is moving toward smaller one-day conferences because they're easier to afford for agencies and providers. They're easier to get away to. And you can zero in on.
And the
local
location is really so easy to get to for everybody, really, so.
And we should also thank the VA Center.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's great that they're stepping up.
Would they be listed as a sponsor also?
Registration's gonna be on the website.
It's a good, yeah, that's a good point, and we should include them. The program is already mocked up, and we've made a couple mentions of, thanks to their staff. But maybe it is a good idea to include them as
Yeah.
a sponsor, because really they are. I mean, they're opening up their
Donating
doors, they're
their
donating their
everything.
facilities. So we can easily incorporate that into the promotional material. That's easy enough.
So, motion on the floor.
Frank
Any
had,
further-
Frank had another
Frank had-
question
sorry.
that actually I was gonna ask.
Expense account, because we were looking at, the $10, if there was a particular number you were looking at, hoping for to cover all the expenses and expenditure, because maybe when you put the brochure out, as long as you were offering that for our providers only $20, and maybe if you had early registration, people registered ahead of time, they get the $20 versus the $30, and then he's got a better head count of how many people are coming, and that the expenses are, and to help with the catering, because all that's built by numbers. And the more numbers you got ahead of time as a prerequisite.
I want to defer that to Brandon.
I'll punt that and see what the group thinks. I mean, what's the group consensus? We did discuss that initially, like, what's our cutoff date for registration?
The biggest question would be is if they're paying ahead of time with the pre-registration,
Yes,
with like credit card or
this is not a
something.
walk-in. This is pre-registrations only. No
But are
walk-ins.
they paying up
Yes,
front?
yeah, it's paid,
Okay,
it's a paid
because-
registration.
Yeah, because
Because
that's the
there's
thing,
that
everybody
commitment
says
to
they're
attend.
coming,
Correct.
and
We're-
then.
No, we
then they
learned,
don't
we got
show up.
burned on that years ago.
Yeah.
We learned on
Yeah.
that.
Good.
That's what I was worried about. You said
No.
all this
And
catering
it's
up
either
for
gonna be
200 people and
cash or
50
check.
show up.
Yeah.
What
We're
we
not
did,
set up for
what we did
PayPal.
3 years ago, and similar to like Frank was saying, we offered agency discounts. I don't know if we want to do that again. We did send, kind of a 6 for 5. Send 5 providers, get 1 for free. I don't know if we want to do that again. I mean,
I think $20 is a heck
yeah,
of
we
a.
could just leave it simple.
Where can you get lunch and 2 breaks for
Right.
$20
And
plus
and
the
education,
CME?
right,
I agree.
and the education.
Yeah.
I'd just call that good.
Cool,
Yeah.
all right. We're looking for anything simple, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Further discussion? Okay. So the motion to fund a $10 per regional provider subsidy to the upcoming EMS conference, December 1st.
I'll make it. I'll second it.
I don't, do I have a conflict?
Actually, we
I was about
already.
to ask that.
Actually,
I don't know if I have a conflict, I'm from the RNA.
Okay, we'll back, actually, we already had the motion up, we finished
yeah, we did.
discussion, so the motion was already done. But thanks, guys, I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
So, to the issue of the conflict of interest, Mary Ann is
Dr.
concerned
Kellogg.
about a conflict of interest, so again, I'll leave that to the council.
I'll make a motion, there's no conflict.
There's no conflict, it's education.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, so the council declares no conflict. Back to the original motion to subsidize registration fees for regional providers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So we'll look for advertisements tomorrow morning.
No.
We'll take our Facebook
You can
photo.
look, how about, yeah, you can look.
There you go.
Well, look next week.
You're right, for next week.
Tweet it out first thing, Brandon.
Right, yeah. I'll do it right now.
Excuse me, so.
Get a picture of you at the VA.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else from Finance Committee, Al?
Nope, we're good.
Any discussion on the MOU proposal? Did you guys have any? I've just got a draft.
I didn't see it. I didn't
Okay.
see it.
I'm gonna table that for now then.
I think you should.
Mainly
Unless
because I
there's
just
a
saw it
timing issue.
tonight too. I don't think there is a timing issue.
I've never seen it. Has Jim seen it?
Yeah, it came from Jim and Mike met.
I think we're all set, it just has to be renewed every calendar year, so, it doesn't even have to be re-voted on, it's just a review every.
And the only change was the name.
Oh, okay, the only change is to our corporate name.
Fine.
Okay, all right. So, since I don't think that requires a vote, I'll just renew it and, or continue it with the name change. Okay. All right. Anything else for Finance Committee? Okay.
Were you gonna mention about the bridge? On the bridge, no?
I'm sorry?
Jimmy tell you.
No.
So we're currently on the bridge, through the state. So we can now apply for grants, but the EMS Foundation now has their own.
Oh, Grants Gateway.
Oh, you're on Grants Gateway.
Oh,
I thought, what
Not
bridge are we
bridge,
talking?
sorry.
Corning
I
Bridge?
get bridges.
I'm sorry.
Lake Street.
Lake
The Honorable,
Street
the Honorable Al Lewis Bridge.
Have to build a
Did you see a bad look on my face?
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I saw one on yours there.
Yeah, 'cause sorry, I get bridges and gateways mixed up.
Okay.
But we are on it now.
Okay.
so that project is moving along.
Good.
Good. Okay. There's nothing else for finance. Executive committee met briefly this evening, a couple of orders of business for housekeeping. The first two being applications for council alternates. And I have two. One is from Jim Neary. And we had considerable discussion. We realized, as we looked at these, that there was no place on the form to mark who you were having an alternate for. We decided it was either Al Lewis's or Dan Miller's signature.
That's mine.
I thought so. Okay. So I have an application for Jim Neary as an alternate to Al Lewis. And also have an application from Joe Chavone, who works at Irway, and that's an application to become an alternate for Henry Jerzak. We can take those separately if you'd like, or we can take them together.
That would go together.
Okay, and a
Can
motion
we-
to.
I guess the question would be is with Jim Neary not living in the region, is that a question as an alternate?
No, so
Okay.
according to our bylaws,
Okay.
We'll change that.
Okay.
council members by Article 30 are required to live within the geographical region.
Okay.
However, alternates may come from outside.
I remember something about it, I just didn't remember
That's been
the
a
whole
while
piece,
since we
okay.
did that.
Nope, that's fine.
Very good, thank you for the clarification.
Yep. So I have a motion from Mr. Horton to make both of these appointments.
I'll second.
And seconded by Mary Ann. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah.
Stop it. Welcome to both Jim Neary and to Joe Chavon. We also reviewed council membership and a number of applications that we've received over the summer, as well as current council residencies. I'd like to, first off, welcome Dr. Kellogg to the bright side. He's now a resident of Steuben County.
All right. He's well protected.
Which actually takes care of one of those vacant Steuben County seats. We have two other applications that the executive committee reviewed from Steuben County residents that we bring forward with recommendation for approval to the council. The first is Lee Peterson. Lee is employed by Ira Davenport. He's the lead nursing supervisor at Ira Davenport, and he's also come on board since Linda Donnelly's retirement. Lee's active in the QA process through Ira Davenport. He's also been integrated into the QI committee with Mary Ann and Terry. As far as I could tell during the executive committee, Mary Ann and Terry are both excited to have Lee involved. He is very pro EMS as well. He's got references in order. If anybody'd like to see his complete application, we'll certainly pass that around. It's from Plattsburgh. I did forget to mention that. And while that application's making its way around for anybody that would like to review it, I'd also like to bring forward an application for council membership from Alan Ingalls, who's actually sitting at the table tonight as Colleen Hulbert's alternate. And Alan submitted his application back in February. He's captain at Fremont Ambulance. And as we discussed Alan's application, we remember that Fremont's done some great things lately. They've moved into the electronic charting age. They've moved with the Harnell area. Alan's been very proactive, and I guess I should actually let Terry and Frank speak on his behalf. But that was the second application that the council chose to recommend for appointment, so I'm gonna pass that around as well. And while people are taking a look at those, I'm gonna note also that we have a couple other applications in the jacket. Two of those being from Steuben County. But like I said, we have the seats filled up from Steuben at this point. But one is from a person who's stroke coordinator and QA management coordinator at Corning Hospital. And although the seat's not necessarily available right now, executive committee would like to suggest maybe that this person maybe be integrated as an alternate. I understand her. Yeah, so it would integrate and she can kind of get a feel for the system and, kind of keep that in mind.
Should she send in a separate application for an alternate then?
Yeah,
Doing,
there's a
yeah, I'm
form.
doing an alternate
Yeah,
application.
there's a
Yeah.
form.
We got a couple open.
Yep. And, had another application from actually a Steuben County resident who, wanted to occupy a seat on behalf of a provider from a different county. So I'd like to remind everybody that the council seats are set up by Article 30, along with the composition and geographical areas are set up by our bylaws. Council members don't necessarily represent their specific agencies. Council members are here to represent the best interest of the system as a whole and the best interest of the citizens that live in this region as a whole.
The only requirement is that they represent a certain specific percentage
Geographical
of
area,
discipline.
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So,
So a certain percentage come from EMS, a certain percentage come from other aspects, but then it's broken down to, obviously you have to live within the region, but 12 of our seats are designated for Steuben County, 12 for Chemung County, 6 for Schuyler County. We do have currently 3 Schuyler County openings and 3 Chemung County openings. So, but we have no applications from residents of either of those counties. You guys need a little more time to look at Mr. Peterson's application, or at least I'll entertain a motion and then you can open for discussion and questions. Okay. Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Dan Miller. Discussion on Lee Peterson? Mary Ann, Terry, you guys have been working.
No, we're
with it. Your
excited that
thoughts?
there's good participation and eagerness and willingness, so.
I don't wanna.
Yes, snatch them up.
Further discussion for Mr. Peterson?
Facebook Live all the time. I call him Conway City. I was getting down this morning about it.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve Lee Peterson for membership to council. Actually, I already had the motion.
I was gonna say, the motion already there.
I worked last night.
You got me last time.
All those in favor of Lee Peterson's appointment to council?
Aye.
There you go.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we'll welcome Mr. Peterson. I'll send him a letter. And we'll look forward to seeing him in November. Second application, Mr. Engels. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Would you like to speak on your own behalf, Alan, or did you?
I'm interested in, I'm looking at this as more of an educational for me to get more involved with EMS. I've been in EMT, as you'll see in my application, since 2004. And majority of that time, I've actually been the ambulance captain. Even before I had my EMT certification, they made me that. And so I'm pretty excited about coming on board and learning more about the EMS.
Well, I know your agency's really been trying to participate in all different aspects, so that's great. That's really great.
We tried. We really pride ourselves. We try to take all of our calls, and I've got a good bunch of EMTs right now, and I got 2 more hopefully coming up. And we try to strive to do our best.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of Alan Engels' appointment to the council?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Welcome. I'm sorry.
No. A question on the topic. Does your bylaw specify that the representative council member has to live in the county if they're going to represent?
Yes.
Yeah, that, my understanding is that was established long ago to preserve the balance, if you will.
And that's fine. I work with another council who doesn't have that requirement, so they had applications. You wouldn't be sitting with applications in a file if you have open seats on the council based on a residency requirement to represent. So, but that's, it makes sense.
Right. Right. The list of requirements. Okay. Another, rather quick order of business. As Nikki and I had been trying to review council records and put some other things together, excuse me, we found we were having some real difficulty finding individual council members' appointment dates and reappointment dates. So, council members, by Article 30 and by our bylaws, are up for reappointment every 4 years. So, we felt that we needed to start with the ones that we had the oldest reappointment dates for, make sure that we have everybody back on track and in the right.
I mean, that's the oldest I've ever.
In the right rotations. I honestly didn't mean oldest.
Yeah, you did.
It was a little frustrating, but we need to do it and get everything back to where it belongs. So, actually, I have, and before I started, say, I'd entertain a motion to do these as a group. I have Frank Brzezowski. His last renewal date we had was 3/12, March of 2012. Henry Jerzak, also March of 2012, was the last renewal date we had for him. Bill Kennedy, also March of 2012. Tim Marshall, March of 2012. Dave Rapture, March of 2012, and Terry Simons, March of 2012. I'm assuming you all would like to continue to participate.
Shut the door.
Say, everybody get out.
Say yes. Thank you. So I'll as
I'll
I
make a
said,
motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Hear the train coming.
Nope, there is no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, welcome back.
We missed you.
I feel like I never left.
But the idea is to spread these over the 5 meetings and put everything back on track. We have some that are relatively new, obviously, so we have good dates for those. But we just, we can't find good records, so, thank you for that. Along that same line, it occurred to me that, it seems like I've been doing this for way too long. So, I'd like to, impanel a nominating committee to, look at the office of chairman and vice chair for, the November meeting. And then we'll be able to either elect or re-elect in December for council chair and vice chair. We set those up, if you'll recall, on 2-year terms in the bylaws revisions, with the opportunity for, well, not with the opportunity, but with a term limit of 2 2-year terms. So it's been in the neighborhood of 2 years, I think. But it's time to reaffirm that or to make some different choices. whatever's your pleasure. So I'll take a couple people for nominating committee to report back in November. Don't make me pick somebody. Thanks, Al. One more?
Don't point at me, where are you on committees and stuff? Go ahead.
I say one of the ones that aren't here.
I was gonna
Like
suggest that.
Jim or
I got one question.
Jim
Can you
or
finish
Henry.
out
Vegas,
Sarah from Bob?
I think.
So, has it been 2 years since?
I believe so.
It's been
They won't be here in November either.
I replaced Bob in
Yeah, it's been
November
class.
of 2016.
Holy cow.
Huh?
Yep.
Mark's
So,
taking an EMT class.
Oh, that's right, yes.
He's
Some of the
in
history
class.
of the council,
Tuesday,
remember, we
Thursday.
did that 25th anniversary in 2000. And we had put the history of who's been there, and how long they've been, I don't know where that might be, but that'll give you some insight. Because I think Al and I are probably the most senior here right now, maybe with Bill's help.
I believe Mr. Lewis is a charter member.
Yeah, he is. Because I think when I went to the Corning Library, I think you were chair then.
104 years ago.
So I went with Helen Scout.
Yes, that was
Check
Jenny
check the
Connect.
stone tablets in here.
I remember when voting on helicopter CONs was a
Oh my
thing.
God,
We
that
were
was a
at
war
Corning
zone.
Library at the time.
That was a war zone, yes.
So,
Who's gonna be volunteering?
I'll take three, and we'll put Steven on, and
Jimmy or Henry?
Jimmy or Henry, one or the other.
You got score too.
Oh, I think Jimmy, I'm his alternate, so.
Okay.
Motion by
Put
Jim
that
alternate.
in.
Oh, it's in the minutes and it's recorded. Jimmy, I
You might be
should-
watching, wait.
I doubt it. Okay, so that concludes the executive committee and new business. Any other business to come before the council? Yes.
Just a little bit of news, good or bad, depending on how you look at it. This will probably be my second to last gathering. We were fortunate enough to be able to fill a 2-year-old vacancy in our region. And we hired a gentleman by name, and some of you will recognize it, Donnie Trepaz. Donnie is coming to us from Mercy Flight Western. He was the flight operations director there for a number of years. Been a paramedic next to forever. I've been one forever. So, he will be starting with us on the 20th of September. So you'll get to see him at Vital Signs. You'll see him. I'll bring him with me at the November meeting. But what we're doing is reorganizing our region so that each of us, the three of us, will each have 2 regional councils. So Donnie lives in Elma, which is at the northern part of the southern half of Erie County, if that makes sense. So he will have the Southwestern Council, and he will have this council. And I'll continue with Finger Lakes and Monroe Livingston, and Eddie will have Big Lakes and Erie, Wyoming. So I will bring Don around to introduce him. He's a great guy. He's phenomenal. You will enjoy him. He will be great to work with. We're excited to have him.
Is he gonna be based out of Rochester, or where's his office?
He's going to be based out of Buffalo.
Buffalo.
He will be in the Buffalo office. We'll make sure everybody's got his contact and stuff. Like I said, I'll bring him around.
Anything else for the council?
Under events, Don, you forgot concepts and trauma. Was over second
That's
and
right.
third.
Thank you.
Um,
Tyler Downs.
If that's not on our website.
It is on our website,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, Tioga Downs
Yeah.
this year. Always a great conference. It
Who's
was
that sponsored?
Guthrie.
Guthrie, yep.
3-year message.
Great about.
Great event.
And that conference is doing 20-something
They've
years.
been doing it a long time.
This is their anniversary year. It's
Fifth
like
year?
the time we get 20.
Fifth year?
I think.
No, I think it
might be
was.
close.
Yeah, I think it was 25th year, right?
It's been a long time, I went to some.
I had the green t-shirt.
Still crawl all the way to the party,
Darn close.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
Mary, about the challenge coins idea that you've been throwing around?
Refresh my memory.
The idea of doing Southern Tier Regional EMS Challenge coins that could be sponsored by the council and given to providers or other people affiliated with EMS in the region that we feel are doing a very good job of either serving EMS, patient care, wellness, those kind of things. It's just a little token of our appreciation.
Well, as you know, they're treasured, they really are.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal when you receive one. And I know some of you with military background can tell some stories about the drinking, but, but they're highly respected, and it is and they do it downstate. I want to say in the Westchester area, they award EMS. It's got the bridge on it and everything, and I saw the coin.
Which bridge?
Yeah, well, whatever they call it now. It's.
The one that's not open?
It's just an idea we came up with, because when we were talking about wellness for providers in the region, we thought we wanted, and Dr. Kellogg will address that more in his presentation, but we wanted to recognize and support providers in the regions for everything they've done. So that was just one of those levels that we were looking at. Because
Do you have any idea how they would be given out?
you have to bring the criteria. I mean. we
Well,
have to
Well,
develop the
I mean
criteria.
how you wanna give them out, but I know back when we were in the military, all the commanders had them, so that when you did a good job, your commander or your first sergeant would give you a challenge coin, and maybe it might be a good idea for some of the emergency room physicians to have them, as well as something like that, and if someone comes in with a really good call, they can hand out a challenge coin and say, you guys just did an amazing job on that call.
Yeah. I think not having extremely specific criteria is better, leave it to the discretion of people.
But for me, when I was in the military, you know, it meant so much that either your company commander or your first sergeant handed you a challenge coin. And I think that kind of transitions the same as I really think that it would get a lot of meaning if one of the emergency department physicians were handing out challenge coins. I think that, not that it wouldn't be great to get it in an envelope from this committee with a nice letter saying thank you, but I think, you know, actually immediately after the call, the physician hands you a challenge coin and said, boy, you just did a really amazing job on that call. And I think that would have immense meaning to the provider.
Is this something that the council could underwrite? Does this fall within the purview of
Yeah, I
things
don't
that the
know,
council
because
can
it's not
financially
promotion,
support?
it's kind of a gray area, really.
Need more information about it.
But, because we were looking at cost of them, and they are not, depending on what you do with it, they're not that pricey.
Whether it's okay or not, may actually just be the details of how you structure the program. If you're considering it to be a commendation of some sort, I think we could slide that one by, and I'm not gonna speak for finance committee, but I think in the form of a commendation.
Isn't that just like a
How
black?
did they do the
black?
Gold Star
Yeah.
Life? The same thing, right?
Yeah, except we really didn't pay for those.
Oh,
They were, I think Amstar did most of the legwork on them.
I think so,
when we
too,
did it.
yeah.
But if you remember that project, we were able to, at the time, nominate people for the Gold Star, and then the QA committee actually reviewed those nominations, and once a quarter, presented those at a council meeting.
It would be great if you said the physicians do that, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but then you read the roll call here of who received that, so then everyone is aware that that person was recognized for the great save or whatever the situation was.
Should be on the website.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Recognized for exemplary work.
Mhm.
EMS, absolutely.
Mhm.
we have to stroke people.
Oh, my heavens.
We have to keep them.
Well, we hear every day of what we're not doing right. We all do.
Oh,
So
exactly.
it's, well, maybe not you, but it's really good to award all the good that we do. I recognize it. Just like recently, they had the Wegmans save. That with the American Heart, I think, recognized was a student nurse and a couple of the Wegmans employees that recognized the MI going and resuscitated the patient until ALS got there.
We're both retired Elmira
Courtney
City
or
police
Elmira?
officers.
Elmira.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Elmira.
So it's, you're safe at Wegmans. We know that now.
At least that way.
Yeah, definitely bears looking at, just keep in mind and, you know, keep in touch with Jimmy as you bounce ideas around to look at what's within the boundaries and what's not.
So with the guidance of, yeah,
Not-
that
not-
corner right over
not-
here,
not
yeah.
Ross, Don.
Yeah, both of them.
The old guy.
No, the concept is great, we just, we need to figure out how to sometimes be a little creative to make it happen. Anything else for the council?
I was able to go last week to the Catskill Hudson Area Health Education Center's Leadership Conference. It was an excellent conference. You know, again, there's another example of a one-day conference. It was $100, and it was very, very well attended. It was held at Harris College. Steve Kroll was there and spoke. Doug Wildermuth, who's a former New York State police officer, who's running consultant services now. But it was really kind of focused quite heavily on recruitment, retention. Lee Burns did a presentation on what's old is new again. And it was really a really great presentation. Of course, Lee does very good speaking in front of people, but talking about how coming back into EMS as a retired individual and how much fun she's really having, you know, getting back into EMS again. And that, you know, we're missing marketing those folks that may have been in EMS years ago, that left because of job requirements, that are now starting to retire and are still eligible to, you know, run calls. So it was an excellent, then we had a couple of presentations from Doug Sauter, who oversees the New York State non-for-profit organization at the state level, and he did some really great comments on governance, you know, principles and best practices of your bylaws and those type of things, as well as fiscal responsibility within organizations and nonprofits. So excellent conference, took a lot of good notes, and hopefully I can, you know, bring it back and share some of that information with our EMS providers in our county at some point.
One last thing, I've mentioned this before, but there's a mobile stroke unit that will be launched sometime this month. Do you have a picture of it?
Those are the stickers for it.
From the University Project. I know they're working on it. The exact date is kind of, I don't know if it's totally firm yet,
I
but
think it's Monday.
they said the 17th. They're hoping the 17th.
Because some of our stuff that we normally do on Mondays have been canceled because it's the launch of the.
Yeah, they're doing, I think, a lot of dry runs and, yeah.
How's it gonna work?
I think they're gonna cover a 30-mile radius.
Around the city of Rock.
Right, but there'll be interface as
Yeah.
well, so it's modeled after Cleveland.
Yeah.
We'll see
So-
how this, I got to see the mock-up from Houston.
Cleveland.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
they-
impressive to see that CT scanner in the back of that rig.
What if somebody throws that switch when they're driving down the road and like parked cars stand on the side of it?
Yeah. You have to maintain 65 miles an hour. So in theory, that could be for our providers in the northern part of Steven. If they start heading north,
They'll get to see it, yeah, they'll be
Yeah.
able to interface,
That's
yeah.
neat.
they could
That's very
interface with
cool.
it. That's feasible.
TPA
I
at
can see that.
Walmart, you know, whatever.
Hopefully they
Yeah.
share that
Go
information
Octane
so
or-
we can push that out to our northern providers.
Yeah.
So they don't go
That was a
Octane.
soft
Yeah.
notice because they haven't officially marketed it yet.
The photo shoot tomorrow at the Public Safety Center in Rochester, so.
I tried to get a picture, but they won't let me have one yet.
Imagine how awesome that would be around this area. That'd be great.
So,
Anything else for council? Okay, next meeting will be November
8th.
8th in Corning.
No.
Yeah, I got a thing.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll say.
You always got it.
Not yet, wait down the big, maybe I'll be before you in the morning.
You're
Set.
after.